Hi, I'm Dan Buckstaff, and today we're going to talk about lifetime customer profiles and their importance in user recognition in the retail and e-commerce space. All right, today's agenda. We're going to go through the role that profiles play in individualizing experiences, and in particular what we mean is content experiences that you see throughout kind of retail and e-commerce and different forms of verticals in that arena. We're going to look at examples of attribute and action-based profiles and the differences between these two. Now, this is a very fundamental difference, and we'll dive into it. And then, how do you build and maintain attribute-level profiles? Now, these descriptive attributes are crucial to the individualization process, and we're going to take a look at a 7-tier program that enables your ability to do this. And then we're going to look at an example, what we call keeping it fresh, which is the adaptation of experiences as you have a series of experiences over kind of many different channels that you might encounter. Okay, so now let's take a look at individuals versus segments. So the whole idea, the whole reason to build a profile, an individual profile for a person, is that you can create an experience for them. And for them specifically based on what you know about them. We call this individualization, and really what it is it's a kind of higher degree of personalization, if you will. And that is very different than kind of a segment-based experience. In other words, choosing a piece of content or types of content to populate an experience for a person based on the segment that you have them assigned to. So you can only do this if you have a profile, and the more detailed, the more attributes, the more descriptive attributes you have in that person's profile, eventually the more individualized you can make the experience with the content, the products, the kind of graphical representations of ideas, editorial content that you want to show them. So attribute profiles allow the targeting of an individual, of a person, and being able to do this in a way that builds a better relationship, kind of moves them to action, gets them to purchase more perhaps, and rather than targeting them as a segment or as part of a segment. Now, I want to kind of digress here for a minute and talk about segments, in that you can have segments of people who have a certain tendency. Maybe they're frequent buyers, maybe they're very engaged, maybe they're unengaged, and you're trying to activate them. And then you can reach out to them with engagement. It might be retargeting, it might be some sort of ad placement. It could be an email. Very commonly it's email. That's okay to define a group of people that way, but still, each of those individuals in that group, you're going to want to personalize or individualize the content that you are sending to each one of them, whether it's an email or some other type of retargeting effort. So that's what we mean when we say, creating an experience based on what you know about the individual and their profile attributes, rather than sort of doing it based on kind of their membership in a segment. Okay, so now let's take a look at two common profile types. So the most common profile type out there today is a collection of actions, and really it's like a log of actions that a person has taken. So it can be, that they viewed some products, they purchased a product. It might be they put something in a shopping cart and then abandon it. And this log of actions, allows you to then kind of predict that, well, someone who purchased this product based on other people's actions, that people who bought this also bought that, and that's what's commonly called wisdom of the crowds. And really, what you're doing is creating segments out of people who have done similar behaviors. And so, this segmented kind of capability that sits on top of a log of actions and profiles is one way to create experiences for people, and pretty much all the product recommendation systems that are out there today, many of the content swapping services, they all use this type of segmented-based capability to create an experience for a person when they show up. So now that's pretty general, and really what it happens is it is focused on the last action, whatever someone did last, sort of decided that that's their intent. So they clicked on a product, so you should show other products like that. Or they just bought something, so what did other people who bought that buy? So that works if you know their intent, if they're in the lower purchase funnel. So a second type, and this is less common today, but it's becoming much more popular because it's so powerful, is an attribute level profile. And so these descriptive attributes are extracted from all the engagement, from all the different actions that someone has, but rather than cataloging just the action like they viewed a product, what you do is you extract these descriptive kind of tag level attributes from that engagement, from that interaction, and then that goes into a profile. And then you can build a model about which ones are important, which ones are kind of long-lived, and then what you're able to do is you're able to say, anytime a person shows up, if they're in the upper funnel, if it's a promotional email or a lifecycle email, or if you're retargeting them with an ad, or they're showing up on the home page or a product page, you haven't seen them for a while, you're able to still kind of rank the content that you have in relation to this person's profile. So that's a very powerful thing to be able to do. It allows you to address 100% of customer experiences rather than just that narrow set, which is the lower funnel, and that's where action-based profiles really are kind of effective. So introducing this idea of an attribute level profile is really crucial. So let's take a look at that. What is an attribute level profile? Well, it's a collection of all of these semantic tags, and what really a semantic tag is it's a word that describes something important about an object. So in this case, you might have a shoe category, kind of a shawl, kind of a product category like jumpsuits that Alexa has looked at, and many other sorts of things. And then because they're semantically extracted and then described as these attributes, what you can do is you can blend all this together in one profile and then use it for ranking purposes, for future engagements and experiences. And you just can't do that if you're tracking the profile at the action level, like we were talking about a minute ago. So why are these attribute level profiles so important? Why are we talking about them? Well, crucially, you can rank content. And what we mean by content are some of the samples we have here. It could be editorial content, individual products, higher level content like graphics or promotions or banners, and everything in between. And then if you have an attribute level profile, you're able to select the content, kind of rank what's important for that person at that time. So let's look at an example of that and what we mean by kind of ranking content based on an attribute. If you think about an experience that someone has in e-commerce or in retail, it could be opening an email, it could be landing on your home page, a category page, it might be an in-app experience. And really, that experience can be viewed as a blank template the moment before someone opens it or views it. And then at that time, you know who is opening it, you're able to, you know about them, you have a descriptive set of attributes that are in their profile, you're able to then kind of rank the content that you have, which could be your catalog, it could be a bunch of articles or editorial, it could be different sorts of things. You can rank it at that moment and deliver that experience into kind of whatever template is there, and then you have an individualized experience for that person at that time. And so that's how attributes kind of roll up and become a very important supporting, a very fundamental piece of an individualized experience. So let's kind of contrast the experiences that you can get kind of with these two different types of profiles. On the left, you have a very common kind of personalization with action-based segments, which is you're looking at a product, and so here's a bunch of products that are like that product. It's a lower funnel, maybe about to purchase type of experience. That's really where that has proven to be effective. But the reality is most experiences are not in the lower funnel. They're outreach, they're relationship building, they're discovery oriented. So how do you develop an experience that works at any stage of the funnel, that provides a fresh, diverse experience that is kind of representing, kind of maybe the unique products or the long tail products that you might have. This is where you really get into the capabilities of using that attribute profile and then ranking content and representing this diverse selection. And as it turns out, that ends up delivering much more engagement with some metrics like clicked open rates and click-through rates and open rates, and then of course kind of lifetime value of customers and overall purchases. So let's take a step back. So how do you get to that point where you have these descriptive attributes and then from there kind of so that you can rank and create these experiences? So really there's a kind of a pyramid of steps, if you will, that you need to follow. And so the first of these is that you need to understand who this customer is. You need to have a unified ID across all your channels. And then you need to be able to track the actions that a person, that an individual customer takes across these channels. And actions could be, kind of web clicks, product views. They might browse a category. They might add something to a shopping cart. They might read an article, a how-to guide. They might watch a video. There's many different sorts of things you want to track. And then, of course, you have to recognize who these customers are when they show up in different channels. And we'll talk about all of these steps here in a minute. And then you want to be able to extract attribute level data from each of these actions. And this is kind of the crucial step we were talking about earlier. And if you can do that, then you can start to build a profile from these attributes. Of course, you have to have a model on how they're all related so you can blend them together. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then you want to be able to track content impressions, so what you showed a particular customer, an individual customer, and how they responded, because then that allows you to update your profile. And once you have those updated profiles, you can then adapt the experiences that they have kind of from one experience to another. It might be in one channel, it might be across multiple channels, but you have to be able to have this whole set of steps working in order to drive that sort of adaptation. And at the end of the day, you end up with a deeper relationship with the customer, a more satisfied customer, a customer with higher lifetime value. Okay, diving into the details, the first thing is you have to take a look at your IDs, and then you have to have a unified ID across all these channels, email, and your website, and your app. And common solutions for doing this are you can take their email and you can hash it so that it's encrypted. MD5 is a common standard. You can also, we've seen this done with CRM IDs. Once again, those may or may not be hashed. And then you have to use different tools to make this ID available so that it's available, say, on the website. You can use your tag manager, you can use your email service provider, and then, of course, you also want it to have available in your apps. So then, once you've done that, you have to track the actions, that you see across channels. So you have to be able to track kind of the basics here: the clicks, the searches, the shopping cart ads, the purchases. Increasingly in today's retail, you have more user contributed information that's really valuable. There might be some favorites. They might have ratings. There can be wish lists. There's in-stock notifications. There's an increasing amount of this. You have to be able to access this information. You want to watch and capture what editorial engagement they have, because that's a good indicator of kind of their interest. You can get descriptive attributes as a result of that. And this involves using tracking pixels or script on site, accessing your CRM data, and you can also have like SDKs that work in your mobile apps. And importantly, you can start this anonymously if they end up on site, and then you can merge these threads later once you recognize them. We discovered and sort of seen that a best practice here is to store this anonymous information on the server side while it's building up, and then perhaps they'll open an email, perhaps they'll register on site, they'll do something like that that will allow you to merge that information, and then presto, you have a fairly robust profile for them. Okay, so now that you're beginning to get a profile, it's important that you recognize this customer across channels. So the methods for doing this, a great place to start is email. email is a very common point of contact. You can cookie them. It's 100% authenticated. Once you have them cookied, you can recognize them once they are on site. Other methods on site are kind of persistent sign-in or persistent login using cache. You can also require that they have an account, and that's something that's more popular these days. The advantage to that, of course, is you can build a richer profile. The ability to merge anonymous data when recognition or identification occurs is crucial, and then you want to be able to do this throughout your apps and your different kind of digital properties as well. So now that you have your customers, you're building a profile, and their actions, and you recognize them, so you can kind of tag those actions to a particular ID. You have to be able to extract the attribute level data so that you can get those descriptive attributes that we were talking about earlier. And you want to be able to do this with all your content types. So your catalog data, user contributed data, editorial, it needs to be understood semantically, which means you have to have a set of those tags, descriptive tags that kind of describe what the important aspects of that particular piece of content. And then when that happens, each customer interaction offers kind of a set of tags that can be extracted and then placed into that user's profile. So if you think about this as a product, this dress, you can take a look at it and you can say, well, there's a set of tags that describe what that dress is about. These are descriptive attributes. So if someone buys this, or if they browse it, or they engage with this particular piece of content somehow, then you can kind of add these attributes into that person's profile. Now, crucially, you have to be able to blend these attributes into a profile. You can't just stick them all in there and say, oh, we have a profile. You have to build a model for what's important. So as you extract these attributes from different actions, it can look something like this. You have your online and offline purchases, web and mobile activity, search queries, and of course, a myriad of others. And this gets you a set of attributes, and then you have to have that model to be able to build a profile out of it. Once you have that profile, then you can begin to take action on it. The first action to do is to track how that individual is responding to content that you're serving them, across all these channels. So once you track those impressions and those, customer views and purchases, and you're able to see what they're engaging with. But importantly, you're also able to see what they're ignoring. And in particular, email, promotional email, newsletters, other sorts of emails like Lifecycle are really valuable in the sense that they're really almost a survey. You're presenting content to a particular individual, and you're saying, are you interested in this? And if they ignore it, well, that's information. You can then look at the descriptive information of the content that's in that survey, that email, and say, well, we're going to reevaluate what our profile looks like and update the profile. And once you have that updated profile, you now can do more with it. And so, of course, that has to happen in a real-time sense, because as someone's moving around across channels, maybe on a website, maybe they see something in an email and then they respond to it and they end up on site. You want to be able to have all of that up-to-the-minute information available so that you can kind of adapt the experiences that are going on. So with those updated attributes, you can update every experience, and this is really crucial in what we call series adaptation, which is the ability to change experiences as someone moves through a series of those experiences. So, I mean, most examples of kind of customer relationship management or customers, there's not just one experience that occurs. There's many experiences that occur over time, and they occur across channels. So how do you take that and kind of make sure that it's fresh and relevant every time? Well, if you have these 7 steps in place, then you are able to do that. And we have a little example of kind of what adaptation can look like here. And this is a series of experiences, 3 experiences for one individual. And as you can see, kind of in the top left experience, we have cameras featured. And that's an indication probably that cameras and the products that are related to that are emphasized, have high value in the ranking of content relative to this person's profile. But through a series of experiences, the cameras have been ignored, and by the third experience, it's a little small here, but cameras are on the bottom. They've been de-emphasized. They're still on there because it's a strong signal in the profile, but it is now de-emphasized, and new items have been surfaced to the top. So this could be a series of emails. It could be kind of an email or two, and then when someone comes to a home page, you have that adaptation occurring. So that's a way that you can keep these experiences fresh and relevant as a customer moves throughout kind of your channels and continues to experience what you have to offer them. So in summary, there's 7 steps here. That starts with a unified ID across all your channels. And then you have to track the actions across those channels, and there's different tools for doing that. And then you have to build your recognition capabilities, and once again, it's sort of a coordination of technologies and process across different channels. And then you have to be able to extract attribute-level descriptive data from content and from user-contributed information, and then put this into a customer profile and a model. And then from there, you can begin to track kind of the response to what you're offering them, what products you're showing them, what categories, what promotions, what editorial content they're engaging with. And then from there, you can begin to adapt their experiences, and you can deliver a superior experience. What we've seen is that this is a way that you can make your engagement stickier. You can develop a relationship that really becomes a virtuous cycle where when someone engages, they see that engagement leads to a better experience, more relevant offerings, more content that interests them. And then as they engage, that continues to happen and get better. And so this is really a form of developing a competitive advantage in today's marketplace. That's a critical aspect with kind of increasing competition kind of from every dimension. So thank you for joining us today. This has been a webinar on the fundamentals of individualization. We focused on building lifetime profiles, in particular with descriptive attributes, and then building user recognition so that you can deliver fresh and relevant experiences for every individual.